They just closed a $7 million round, but here was the key thing that they did that I think made the biggest difference.
The one thing I will say is, like, before we really started building, we interviewed 100 product teams.
This is the story of a stealth founder who moves from London less than a year ago to San Francisco to pursue a dream to build a decacorn. He just announced a $7.5 million round from great VCs. I want this for every founder. Listen to how smooth his funding journey went.
And at the end of the 2-week process, we had a bunch of term sheets. We knew who we wanted to move forwards with. And that's why we decided to kind of take on the extra capital. The immediate advice I can honestly give is, like,
he shares in this episode how it came together, how they hit product market fit, how they got their initial customers, and his contrarian perspective that's going to change everything for product teams. I'm Adam O'Donnell. This is a founder initiative. Let's go.
We're helping people ship experiments faster. I think we've seen Lovable and Bolt do that in the engineering world. Engineering used to be one of the biggest bottlenecks, and our focus is, well, how do we make sure that product development doesn't become that next bottleneck? How do you make sure that you're shipping experiments faster? Because your average experiment today is taking kind of 4 to 6 weeks.
Decrease that cycle time.
Exactly.
How did you identify the problem?
So I used to work in the defense industry, and I was basically building models to predict human behavior. So I think that was kind of like, there's stuff that we can do in this outside. I'd built a couple of companies. Experimentation was always a pain. Took far too long and took too much time and cost too much. So for me, it was kind of like, well, is this a problem that we can solve with some of the work I was doing before? And I was actually working with a company at the time that was trying to predict whether their customers were going to convert from free to paid. And going on that journey with them helped me realize that they were optimizing and they were getting more conversions, but they were optimizing for the short term, and in the long term, it was killing the company. And I think that got me thinking a little bit longer about, like, where is this whole industry going? Artificial intelligence is upending a lot of industries. And I think my view is, like, the way in which we interact with products as humans is going to fundamentally change over the next few years. So I think we see, like, more multimodal interfaces, more disjointed, fragmented UI UX. Are we talking voice, text? Is it going to be on glasses? Is it going to be a UI in an app? Like, all of this happening is going to become so important that we really understand what we're building and for who. And that's the kind of challenge that we're trying to solve.
How do you actually know that the agents are testing it in the right way? Like, are you showing any visibility in that to your customer?
100%. Like, for us, the biggest things that we care about are trust, observability, and explainability. So we need to make sure, like, product people or inquisitive people. Like, if you go to them, hey, I've built this experiment and this is how it's going to perform, the first question is, like, prove it. Like, how do I know this? So the big thing that we spend a lot of time doing is, like, how do we make sure that when the agents are performing, they're performing in a very, very observable way for the product team. And when they go to actually interrogating experiments to find out more, it can explain why it's come to the decision that it's come to. So we spend most of our time doing that, which helps us build a good foundation of trust between our customers and us.
That's so good. Tell me about your contrarian perspective, like any unique insights that you've discovered that have been missed.
I think, like, the biggest question I have, and I don't know whether I'm, like, fully on board with it yet, but I'm beginning to get fully on board with, is up until now, experimentation has always been about static. Like, how do you get statistical significance? It makes sense when that's the way things are done, and you kind of have to wait for a bunch of users to see if the users are going to behave the way that you expect them to. With this tooling, static becomes less important. And my question is, like, is static still going to be relevant? Like, do we still need to get to statistical significance before we decide whether we want to roll it out across the whole user base? With the way in which kind of agentic AI is going, and with the fact that you can spin up tens of thousands of agents very quickly to find out how an experiment is going to perform, the onus falls much less on the how did the humans behave and much more on the did the tech perform as the way it should have done. So the static question is the one that I'm trying to work out at the moment.
That is interesting, man. I know that is the foundation of almost every product expert I've talked to.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
It's why we get, like, a lot of pushback from some people that, like, really love A/B testing, right? They're kind of like, well, this is the way it's done. Surely there's not a better way of doing that. And we would have said the same about engineering until Bolt and Lovable came along.
That's good. Man, that fires me up. Well, tell me about your funding journey, because you've raised $7.5 million right out of the gate, coming out of stealth.
Yeah.
Who are some of those investors?
So we, Kevin Novak, who is the GP at Rack House, I worked with him as a venture partner. Kevin is someone that I deeply respect. I think he was the first data scientist at Uber. He has a deep understanding of data science. He did all of the search pricing for Uber. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. No, but, like, honestly, one of the best VCs I've worked with, one of the most down-to-earth humans that I've worked with as well. So I think having him on board from the early days was important. people that led the round, we had Protagonist and Mac Venture Partners, macro fund based down in LA. I referenced them with 9 founders when we were trying to make a decision on the term sheet that we wanted to move forwards with. And every single founder came back and said, if my company failed and I was building something new tomorrow, I would go to them in a heartbeat. So for us, that was what we needed to hear. And Protagonist, founders of Honey and of Pipe and Raise, I just got along with Harry really, really well. He's a Brit like me. He built Pipe. He, understands the conviction in this industry and the speed that you need to move at. So for me, like kind of having him on board as the other co-lead was super important. And then alongside them, we have Ryan Hoover from Product Hunt with Weekend Fund. Incredible person to have from a product perspective, given that we're trying to kind of change the paradigm of product. And honestly, one of the most helpful investors I've ever worked with. Super fast at replying to emails. Like, honestly, send the guy an email. I reckon within like half an hour, you're getting a response, and has gone above and beyond to make sure that kind of we're successful from that perspective. And then Blank, as well as them, came in on the pre-seed, like as part of the first round of investors that came in, who largely focus on fintech, but we serve a lot of consumer finance and consumer health companies. So Hannah's been super helpful from that perspective as well. So a great group of investors. Obviously, alongside all of them, we've got heads of products at most of the kind of big companies that you can imagine, because it's a problem that product people really face.
I mean, this is amazing, man. And for the founders who have not raised yet, ever, tell us about the timeline leading up to this moment. Because I know you didn't just send a bunch of emails and now you've gotten this huge round.
Yeah.
When did you first start this, and when did you say we're actually actively raising?
So we kicked off a pre-seed. We were aiming to do 2 million. We ended up doing 2.5. We did that in November of last year. And 3 months later, we did the seed round. The seed round was like somewhat preemptive. We had a fund approach us and say like, hey, we really want to invest. We missed the pre-seed. Can we have a chat? We decided to run that as a process, as a 2-week process, and just spoke to a bunch of investors and said, like, thinking about raising an extra round of funding, like tying the two together, does that make sense? And at the end of the 2-week process, we had a bunch of term sheets. We knew who we wanted to move forwards with. And that's why we decided to kind of take on the extra capital. The immediate advice I can honestly give is like, it's finding that first angel that really understands what you do. For us, it was Ben from Discord. Before we moved over to Coinbase, he used to be the head of growth at Discord, and then moved over to be head of growth at Coinbase. I think initially he was like, what are you guys building? And I just didn't do a very good job at explaining.
How did you explain it the first time?
I can't remember what it was, but it clearly wasn't very good because he didn't seem that interested. And then I spoke to him again and I was like, this is what we're doing. And he said, I can put it out to a few people. We had a few people from Discord then join the round. That introduced us to a few more people. And from there, things just began to come into play. Like, it was just, once you've got a couple of people that can do some warm intros for you, then you've got a good base. As long as you've got a good base of angels, then you reach out to the VCs, then you close the round. That was kind of the approach that we took.
Just that warm follow-up. And when did you start
100%.
talking to him? Was that like
Q2? It must have been like September, October, and then we closed the round in November. So it was like a month. I'd say it was like a 4-week process in total for that initial round, and then another 2 weeks for the extra 5.
Wow, what were the hardest questions you were getting at that point from them?
So we were speaking to a few Europeans, and this isn't to dump on Europeans, but I think the European mindset wasn't ready for it. I think they didn't really understand where this market was going. I think it was very early. Lovable was doing well, and people were seeing this kind of trajectory of like startup going from like 0 to 10 million very, very quickly. But there were still some questions around like, how repeatable is it? Is this a sustainable business? All this kind of stuff. And look, there's still questions today, but I think they're more answered than they were. Just looking at like Lovable's most recent round. I think when we started talking to some of the US investors, it was all about vision and team. Like, why are you the right team to be doing this? And I think we really lent on mine and my co-founder's background. So she comes from a product background. We built 2 companies together. My background is data science. We've worked on modeling human behavior together in the past. Like, it felt like that was the like kind of right path. We then onboarded a couple of employees or like early hires. One was a behavioral scientist who did a PhD at Harvard and a postdoc at Stanford. One worked with me in the engineering world in the defense side of things and has a very strong behavioral modeling background. Those combined is essentially what led to, I think, okay, they've got a strong team in place. We had an advisor who was the founder, one of the founders of Benevolent, which was an AI unicorn. He's now joined us full time. So it's kind of like some of that happening is what made people go, there's a stellar team here. There's a problem that needs to be solved. I don't know whether this problem is solvable, but if anyone's going to solve it, it will be this team. So we like really lent into the kind of team perspective, which I think is important.
I think that's massive. And I think when I talk to VCs on this show and just in general, they most of the conversation will be about them analyzing the product or the tool. And I think that's where a lot of just conversation is around founders. And so it makes founders focus on like the deck and like micromanaging every little step. When really, from my perspective, it seems like 80 to 90% or more is about the team. And I love to hear like that was the shift for you. It wasn't because you just like shook them more and like more eloquently communicated it.
Yeah, 100%. It just like, it comes down to eloquently helping people understand that you are genuinely the right person to do it, and that you are passionate enough to do it as well. Because at the end of the day, like, we've built companies before, like, there are highs and lows. Like right now, like I'm on a pretty good high, and like speak to me in like 12, 18, 24, 36, I don't know what the number is, months, there will be a low. And it's like making sure that the founding team are the right people to be able to survive those lows as well is incredibly important when you're looking to invest in companies.
That's so good, man. That is true with everything. I love that. Well, tell us about getting your first customer, or maybe your first 1 to 3 customers. If you have a story,
for sure.
That'd be awesome.
Honestly, like it's all bit, I don't have a good answer for this. Every single one of our customers has been inbound. So we haven't done any outbound yet. Like we've had a few introductions from investors that have said like, hey, we think you should probably be working with our portfolio. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if we can help teams run better experiments, you're at a disadvantage by not using our service. So I think like as a result, we've had like a lot of inbound, which has been great for us. So I don't have like
how did they even know? So
like it was basically like investors initially, and then once we had the first couple of customers, they started talking to other customers, which then brought more people to us. The one thing I will say is like before we really started building, we interviewed 100 product teams. So we sat down with 100 product teams and we were like, look, I think this is a problem. Do you agree? And that helped us build out a pretty strong wait list. And, you know, like
what were those conversations like?
I think like most of the time it's like how quickly can you onboard us? And I was like, well, nothing exists yet, so like it's going to take me a little while. I need to go and build something.
100. Can I just want to zoom in because that's the gold right there. Yeah, because it's like everything else I'm hearing. People are like, well, what can I learn from that? That's just not fair. 100%. But you did the hard work. How long did it take you to interview those 100?
I'm part of a few strong communities, so I put some word out to like some of the big communities. I think we probably did it over a 2-month process.
And what was the word out? Like, was it like, here's the solution, or was it just, here's the problem?
Here's the problem, and how are you currently solving it? So like no push of, this is how we think we're going to solve it. It was very much we think there's a problem here and we want to understand how you solve it. And there's a real range of companies. You get the big enterprise customers that use the tools like Optimizely, Eppo, Statsig, etc. But like 99.9% of companies can't use them because they don't have the data to be able to actually get the like to Statsig to be able to like make this work. On the flip of that, so what you end up seeing is like a lot of earlier companies will be like, I'm just going to trust my gut. And that doesn't work either. And then there's this middle ground where there's like companies want to get towards Statsig, Eppo, Optimizely, don't quite have the data, still trust the gut, have a growing product team. And for us, it's like, we're not trying to replace Statsig. We're not trying to replace Eppo. We're not trying to replace Optimizely. What we're trying to do is make sure that when you do run experiments, when you do push things through, that instead of having 8 in 10 experiments fail, you have 1 in 10 experiments fail, and the other ones that you do push out are more likely to be successful. Changes in the longer term, but like that's kind of how we're thinking at the moment. At the end of the day, all of this tooling that's out there exists so that we can help people run better experiments and build better products.
That's so good. Well, let's talk about the macro shifts. Just working in AI, you're going to get responses from investors more likely than not, and like who isn't in San Francisco. But I'm curious, like if there's any more macro trend that you felt that's kind of really pushed to make this grow so fast.
Yeah, I think like there are the code gen tools are definitely on our side. You know, one of the big things that I see is people are shipping code quicker than ever. They're also shipping vulnerabilities quicker than ever as well. You know, I'm sure you've seen the stuff online where you had kind of like some, we call them grey hat hackers that basically exposed OpenAI like API keys and then basically posted them on the web so that other people could access them because a Vibe coder hadn't correctly hidden his like OpenAI key. Like that kind of stuff is why experiments need to exist. And like this is experiments in the sense of like it's one thing to test, like it's one thing to QA test, it's another thing to test on real humans, and we kind of do both of those things. Like for us, it's like we test experiments to see how people are going to behave to a change, like a UX change, a UI change, a content change, that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, it's equally important to detect vulnerabilities in your code before you push something live as well. So I think that's a massive thing in our favor. Is like that's the way the market's going. Is we're shipping faster than ever, but we're by shipping faster than ever, we're adding more vulnerabilities in the code. We're not spending enough time thinking about our customers. We can't be bothered to wait for 4 to 6 weeks to see an experiment performs. So let's just ship it and see what happens. And ship it and see what happens is great for early stage companies, but bigger companies can't afford to do that because they can't afford to make mistakes, particularly when things like compliance come into play. So like our goal is to allow companies to ship and see what happens, to simulated environments to see what happens, and then work out whether it's something they go out and put out into the real world. So I think that's probably one of the big shifts. I think that like the other big shift is around personalization. We've been promised personalization since like I think I was born. Like it's like, you know, it's like we see these waves. It's like, oh, we're going to do it this time. Personalization is on its way. Like my first company that I built in 2011 was talking about personalization. And like we got some of the way there, but we were talking about like hybrid recommendation engines, like, you know, the Netflixes of the better content algorithms. They did personalize, but like compared to what you can do today with personalization, now it's somewhat of a like juxtaposition to say that LLMs can create personalization because they're really good at generalizing behavior. So how on earth do you get to personalization? But really what I think LLMs are allowing us to do is just compute and work much faster. And if you combine an LLM with more kind of machine learning based models, you can get towards that level of personalization that everyone has wanted. And the way that I see the market going in the kind of medium to longer term, I guess, is we move away from like, look at Apple with glass. They're training us to like wear headsets from like a year from like, you know, that we're going to be wearing glasses. Like I've got Ray-Ban Metas, like they're cool. Maybe glass is actually going to finally arrive. Like Google Glass was just about 20 years too early. But then you've got things like voice, you've got things like text, thanks to LLMs. You've got UI as it is in its current form. You've got agents that are now completing tasks on behalf of humans. All of this is going to really fragment the way that humans interact with products and personalize it to some extent as well. So it's going to be really important that product teams have the ability to manage those different versions of product. And that's kind of the big thing that we're building towards in the longer term.
That's so good. Tell me about the traction that you have so far. I mean, once again, the post is almost at 1,000 likes.
Yeah.
You have 468 comments last time I checked and 62 reposts. It blew me away, and I'm assuming that's a record for you on LinkedIn.
It is a record for me on LinkedIn, yeah. And I mean, like, to be fair, some of our investors were super helpful at like making that happen. Yeah. Like, and I think it's one of those things that I've learned. Like, I've always kind of seen it, but when a LinkedIn influencer or whatever they're called, the people that have the blue things next to their name, when they write something, it like amplifies your post massively. So a few of my friends have that. So I think like Hunter Walk like posted and it like flew off again, and it was just like every time you see one of these like bigger influencers post, then the post explodes again. Yeah, definitely one of the best I've
have
posted.
A strategy around that?
No, not really. Like I basically just said, we're going live on this day. It'd be good if everyone can give it a like. Like that was the extent of my like preparation
Did you send them
for
the
it.
link?
No, I just said like it's gone live, and then some people found it, some people didn't. No, to be fair, like most people did find it. So I think, and to be fair to my investors, I did send it. I was like, we're live, like would love an upvote, like well, not an upvote, a like. So yeah, kind of from that perspective, I mean, like company wise, like traction wise, yeah, we've got a pretty heavy wait list. We're probably we're well over 100 companies now. Real range, like you have big enterprises that are excited to use us. You also have like a guy that reached out, Ukrainian guy that doesn't speak a word of English, that was like, hey, can you send me the demo in Ukrainian? And it's like, I want to, like, I would love to be able to support you. I'm not going to be able to support you at this stage.
You got to focus on
you've got to focus on like what's important to the business. And, you know, I think super early stage companies probably aren't a perfect fit for us just because they don't have the data. And again, for me, going back to simulation, one of the big questions I've always had is how do you trust the results? And you can't trust the results if there isn't any form of data that you can go off of. So for me, it's kind of like I'm spending a lot of time making sure that when we're building, everything that we're doing is verifiable, or as much as what we're doing is verifiable in historic data.
Yeah, and just so I know, so you don't have, when did you start like launching with active customers?
January.
Okay, so you had customers using it.
We've had customers using it.
This launch was with the round as well as like
and
more publicly.
Exactly, yeah. So we've like January is when we first started talking to people. I would say like we onboarded the first customer in March, April. And then, we've been slowly kind of working people off the wait list and prioritizing the ones that we think are most important. And obviously making sure that ones that have been waiting a little while are getting access as well.
Yeah, are there any early signs? Like I love the just vulnerability as you feel led around the early challenges that you're seeing people, because the problem everyone's excited about.
Yeah.
But then it's going to take time to get the solution nailed down.
Oh, for sure. Like, and there's like a million and one different features that people request. Like one week it's like, can we directly integrate this into Figma? The next week it's like, how do we integrate it into Lovable? It's like, we get all of these questions. And I think for us, it's just about prioritizing and working out what's most important. We kind of split the company into two halves. We have a very focused side of the business that's focused on the behavioral modeling side of things and making sure that we're building out agents that behave like humans. And this is like a big question in itself, right? The way in which the markets are moving right now are compute use agents are very goal oriented, which means that this space becomes more difficult because humans aren't goal oriented. We're exploratory by nature. So we have to spend a lot of time like thinking about that side of things. And then on the other side of things, you have customers that are looking for requests that are specific to their business. And it's about making sure that for Olivia, my co-founder, she's spending a lot of time talking to customers and saying like, okay, this is something that's coming up. We've mocked this up. Is this beneficial to you? And that's helping us prioritize what actually matters on both sides of the business, which is then obviously allowing us to onboard customers more quickly, but also the right customers.
That's so good. If this, as the business continues to grow, like what do things look like in 5 or 10 years for this business, for Blok?
So like, honestly, I think it will just radically change the way that people interact with products. I think, for us, like, there's no question in my mind that this gets to decacorn status, like, as long as we execute well. Like, and I say that, like, as a European, that feels a little bit awkward saying that every time that you say it, sort of thing. Like, and I've spoken to investors that have said you're doing yourself a disservice by saying it's a decacorn, you're the next Oracle. Like, it's kind of like, if you get it right, like, and there's a lot of ifs, but like, if you get it right, that's the kind of like the big opportunity. Honestly, I think the big thing for us is how do we become the decision layer for product teams to make it easier for them to build the right products for the right person at the right time. And the reason that we're doing all of the things that we're doing now is so that we can build that future. And that's kind of 5 years out from now where we want to be. We want to be the decision layer that's helping product teams build the right products for the right people.
That's so good. Tell us about your tech stack that you've been winning with to get to this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we've got some fairly proprietary models. We're largely we're building everything in Python. We do use LLMs. We decided to go with Anthropic. The biggest reason for going through Anthropic is we spoke to a bunch of enterprise customers and they told us that they wanted us to use Anthropic. So I was like, okay, well then we'll use Anthropic. Yeah. Anthropic seems to have just won on the space for like enterprise. There's a few reasons. I think like there's stuff around like privacy and like that side of things. And like OpenAI is now playing catch up and trying to make themselves the winner in that space as well. So I think that's kind of like the core focus for us at this stage. Really, we're spending a lot more time building out our own proprietary models. We've hired some pretty awesome people who have got PhDs in, kind of AI, obviously, but like specifically working on reinforcement learning within agents. That's super beneficial to us. One of the biggest reasons for bringing some of those people in is like over time, we want to make sure that these agents are acting more and more human-like, but also they're learning from the results that they're getting from the real world and then using that to improve the model as it moves forward. So that's TLDR, a lot of Python, a little bit of Anthropic, and then all the usual kind of stuff on the back end.
Is there a specific tool that's been uniquely helpful for you, whether it's actually in your actual stack or just a productivity tool that you're using?
Honestly, and like maybe it's cliche, maybe it's not, Superhuman. Like I've been back and forth with Superhuman since like day dot. Like I remember like when I first signed up for Superhuman and I had to do a phone call with someone on their team and I had to have my credit card details ready for the call so they could onboard me. And I've like been back and forwards with them for like the longest time. I'd have them for a while, then I'd get frustrated and churn away. Then I'd come back and be like, no, surely it is good. This is the longest I've stayed with them now. And I think I finally worked out how to like rewire my brain to get to inbox 0 every day. And it's like a big thing for me. And it's funny because like my co-founder was always like, oh, why are you paying for this? Like, you don't need to pay for this. And I got her on it as well. And she's like, yeah, this is really good. So like, I'd probably say Superhuman, to be fair. There are other tools, but like for me in my day to day, that's where I'm spending a lot of my time right now.
I love it. I've been using Superhuman for 3 years, and I think I had the churn off initially, and then I'm just all in. And I think the commands have just gotten me so
100%,
stuck. And I know what they're doing with AI, and they just got bought by Grammarly.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Pretty
that's
cool.
wild. Yeah, was with one of the co-founders at a conference not too long ago, and there was no talk on the town of that, and then that happened. And I was like, fair play, congrats, like that's huge. Like, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's so good, man. What any other shout out that you want to say, like just in general?
I will say, and like this is going to be so irrelevant, but big shout out to like Ashkan, who's one of our angel investors, has been super helpful from day one. Also big shout out to Marcus, who's one of my best friends in the city, who like the minute we arrived in the city just did everything he could to connect us to people, like one of the best connectors I've ever met. There's a million people I could mention here, but like they're two immediate people that come to mind.
Because that's what it's all about. Like it's such a community, and I think that I know you've been in San Francisco for about 6 months, you said, and you told me before we started recording that you don't regret that decision.
No, definitely not. I think, there's an incredible work-life balance in Europe that isn't as good here. Like the work-life balance is like more work than life. But I think like building a company, particularly the kind of company that we're building, San Francisco is the only place to be building it. The one thing I will say is like I do think like researchers are better, like there are better researchers in other parts of the world. It's whether you can leverage that talent and bring it over. When it comes to building a company, the speed, the innovation, the conversations that happen in San Francisco aren't happening anywhere else in the world, which is why everyone moves to San Francisco. I think, like I said to you earlier, like I think I'm at 40 friends that have moved from London to San Francisco since like September, October, November last year. So it really is like everyone is coming over right now, which is, I mean, it's cool because I've got all my friends around me. But then at the same time, it's like, what's Europe not like? How do we make Europe do more so that doesn't happen as much?
Tom, I'm excited to see what Blok
turns
into, and it just, I love your vulnerability. I love the candor. Like I love the approach, and just like there's a momentum that's happening that's much bigger than you.
Yeah, 100%.
And Blok, and like y'all have just captured, like there's that wave, and you started paddling at the right time. It's
for sure
through a lot of great diligence, but it's also cool how you're like admitting like there's just like a lot of great things moving in our favor.
100%.
We saw that in some ways, but some things worked out better than we thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're here at 7.5 million.
Yeah.
Like less than a year later.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's gonna be a wild ride. I'm excited. I'm excited for the ride. Like, I'm excited to see where it all leads. Definitely.
Boom, man. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm Adam O'Donnell. Thank you for listening to the end. As always, reach out to me on LinkedIn. This is way more than just a podcast. It's a community that's dedicated to helping founders hit product market fit, get funded, and stay up to date. Boom.